All right, everyone. Opposition view, as promised. David Mooney, it is, from the Blue Moon podcast, joining us once again, a returning guest. Dave, great to have you with us ahead of West Ham versus Manchester City in the Premier League. Now, last time I spoke to you, it was a really entertaining chat. Loved it. Got loads of good feedback.
I seem to remember going off on tangents left, right, and centre. So, yeah, I'll try and not do that this time.
Yeah. Well, as we're doing it at 10 to 10 on Friday night, I think we'll try and treat this as a tangent-free zone, right? But West Ham playing Man City. And you'll know this, right? You've been podcasting for a long time. James and I into our 7th year now, I think, including the radio show and all that sort of stuff. Now, we tend to play the same teams, every year, other than the change of 3, and you get some different ones in Europe. Now, I am honestly at the situation now where I've run out of original questions to ask a Manchester City supporting guest. Okay. Even last time, it was sort of the originality comes from just going, look, is it boring supporting City? Me and you had a brilliant conversation about that. Now, even that's not original anymore. So the only originality I've got is saying I've got nothing original. What would you suggest I ask you?
Well, let's start with the start to this season because generally City in the last few years, City. So last season's a bit of an anomaly, if I can get my words out at 10 to 10 on a Friday night. I haven't had a drink. I don't drink, I promise. City tend to start slowly. Now, when you look at the results from the start of last season, you go, well, that doesn't really add up either because they won. I think they won the first 6 last season. And they only really got into a sticky patch last season when the autumn came along and everybody went mad. Like the team just collapsed in on on the
that
inability
tends to be a rest
control
period,
game.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. So they went away to the Club World Cup at the end of November, December, that sort of time. And it was very, very much needed. It was very much a case of, look, we just need to get out of the Premier League and go and play some teams that are genuinely not as good as Premier League teams, beat them for a bit and then come back and sort the league out. And actually, when they came back, they were in really good form. But
was
like the run-up...
Fluminense, who were just like playing you at your own game and
so they did it
at the back.
I mean, first off, 2 things about them. I see tangents already. 2 things about them. The first one is I love their kit. Like green and red is a kit. Fantastic. Give me that as an away kit at some point. And then the second thing is they're insane the way they play. The idea is just that they swarm you wherever you are on the pitch. They just have 4 or 5 players just swarming the ball at all times. It's like school ground stuff. Yeah. And I was like, nobody ever does this. Like nobody in Europe does this. So I'm really interested to see what happens. And what happened was I can't remember the result now, but it finished like 4-2 or something to City. So it was like a really, really entertaining game.
There's that viral clip, isn't there, though? They're like playing it around all of you from the back. But they do make Ange Postecoglou look conservative.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love it. So that all happens, and City go away to that tournament, and they kind of blow the cobwebs out. They come back, they're great. But in the run up to the tournament, they were getting ahead in games and then losing the lead and then going back in front and losing the lead and going back in front and losing the lead. And there was a 3-3 draw at home with Spurs. There was a 4-4 draw with Chelsea. Now, they weren't particularly losing games at this stage. They just weren't winning them. And that was that's okay to a point. Like if you draw too many games, that can actually be the killer. And you think back to the City's title in 2018-19. City didn't draw a single game in that season. I think they lost 4 overall. They might have lost 3. Liverpool lost 1 game that season. They just drew too many games, and that was why City won the league instead. So, the draws, like an odd draw here and there is not a problem, but when they drew something like 6 of 8 games because of not being able to control the games, and that was early season City problems, and that's kind of where I thought City would be at the start of this season. They've had no players available for pre-season. They all came back late because of the Euros and the Copa America and everything else, and I thought it would be a case of, well, we'll just see who's fit and we'll kind of try and do what we can do in the meantime. And then the performance at Chelsea was actually quite good. It wasn't as controlled as you'd like it to be, I think, as a City fan, but it was good, and they were solid for the most part. Against Ipswich, I mean, the opening goal from Ipswich was a little bit suspect, and I think City can defend that a lot better. I think Doku can track his man. I think the offside trap can be sprung better. I think Edison can save it. And then I think Akanji can not watch it cross the line. He could probably make some sort of attempt to get back. Yeah, but other than that, they were all right. And then I can't decide. The next 5 minutes, City just went mad at Ipswich's expense. They won the penalty. Haaland scores a brilliant goal from a great De Bruyne pass, and he takes it around the keeper and pops it in. Savinho nicks one off the keeper, and De Bruyne sticks it into the empty net. And all of that happens in the space of about 5 minutes. And I can't decide if City turned the dial up to 11 for 5 minutes and Ipswich couldn't live with them, or if Ipswich went, good God, we're leading at the Etihad. We don't know what to do. And then it all fell apart from that. Probably a little bit of both. And then for like 60, 70 minutes after that, the game was a snooze fest. And then Haaland scored towards the end, put the icing on the cake. So it's really interesting where City are at the moment. I don't think they're certainly not in top gear, and they certainly won't expect them to be in top gear at weekend. They're obviously in a gear that's good enough to win games, because that's kind of City's mode. They often are in that gear. But I I haven't seen a lot of West Ham, but from the way you've started, and speaking to James in the week for Blue Moon, it seems you've had a good start to the season. I mean, the result against Villa maybe wasn't exactly what you wanted, but performance-wise, I don't know. I don't know how it went. So
I can tell you've been talking to James Agenda Jones. Honestly,
all I'm thinking is that West Ham look at City and go, let's have a go, see what they're made of. And City are going, well, we're not quite ready to control games yet. You could get a bit of a basketball game. And if you get a basketball game, you don't really know what's going to happen. It could be one of these games that City were drawing at the end of the start of last season, like at Chelsea, like against Spurs, where you get a high-scoring draw or a narrow win, but with lots of goals for one team. So it'd be a really interesting game. That isn't to say that I'm not confident going into games, because as City, you kind of have to be these days. There's very few situations in which City are the underdog, and there's no way of painting it otherwise. But at the same time, City do lose games, and City do draw games, and City do drop points. I mean, think back to the end of the season a couple of seasons ago when the City had to come from 2 behind at the London Stadium in order to get a point that eventually would actually turn out to be quite crucial. So there's no reason for City to take this game lightly, and there's no reason, I think, there's always, I think, reason for West Ham fans to fear City in the sense of every team should fear City in some way or shape, because Guardiola does this thing where he kind of he squeezes the life out of everybody else. But that doesn't mean that will always happen. So there is always a chance. And I think if you're going to catch City, the time to catch City is early in the season. I think if they're in battle mode towards the end of the season, it's really bloody difficult to get any points off them. At this stage of the season, there is a chance.
Yeah, I mean, you did a good job last time of sort of, what's it called? Just sort of
sugarcoating the pill.
Sportingly taking part in the podcast to give our listeners hope, rather than just going, we're going to dick you, mate. Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing is they might turn up and just say, you know what, we're gonna score 6 today, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do about it.
Exactly. I must admit, listen, the first thing I'll say, and I'll say this to anyone, this is just a good piece of life advice for anyone listening, and yourself, Dave. Don't listen to James Jones. Full stop. Regardless of the topic, do not listen to James Jones. But one thing I would say is he's very much, as a lot of our the West Ham fans are at the moment, who were calling quite vociferously for our best ever manager of the modern era to be sacked last season. He's desperate, obviously, now for it to work out under the Lopetegui reign, as are plenty of the vocal Moyes outers. So there are naturally, just only seeing positives, refusing